Okay, phone lines. They're already jammed. Lynn Marzulli, our guest, will be back in a moment on Coast to Coast AM. Okay, very good. To the phones we go. Wildcard line, Bruce in San Jose, California. Hey, Bruce, thanks for calling.
Hey, George.
Yeah.
First, I wanted to say that Lynn's new book is outstanding. I've read it, and it has a big finale at the end.
Thanks, Bruce. Appreciate that.
The big finale.
And welcome back to the big finale. And bringing back the Roundtable once again here in episode... Wait, what's all that noise?
Sorry, my chair. It's my chair. I was
no
trying to throw some papers away.
Oh, don't worry. Okay.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem. 3, 2, 1. And welcome back to the big finale. Joining us once again for the Roundtable are Chad, the Ayatollah of Radiola, Miles.
Hello.
And, hello. How are you this week?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Oh, excellent. Howdy doody. I don't know what that means. And also joining us is the gregarious one who plays a variety of guests on the Bruce Collins Show, Gabe Reed. Welcome back, Gabe.
Greetings, travelers.
That's right. Now, I didn't put this on our topics for this week, but and this episode is probably not going to air for about 8 weeks. As of this week, we are now week 1 of the big finale, and we're taping like week 9 right now. So just so people know how far ahead we are. But what's going on right now in week 1 is I don't know if you guys want to get into this, but now I just want to preface by saying I don't hate anybody. I don't dislike anybody. But this whole transgender bathroom thing is going to be a huge mess. What do you guys think about that?
Gonna be? It already is.
I mean, it's like, what am I going to be using a bush now at my job?
It's probably safer.
Yeah. Well, in all seriousness, if we're looking at this from a libertarian point of view, then shouldn't there be 3 bathrooms? You know, because there'd be a men's bathroom, a women's bathroom, women and girls, men and boys, and then a transgender bathroom. Because quite frankly, if you say that it's gender identity, logically thinking, aren't you going to have a bunch of pedophiles and also rapists say, I identify myself as a woman? How are they going to regulate that?
Yeah, I mean, that's common sense that you could use that as an excuse if you were some kind of a criminal or a predator, right, to get into the ladies' room, or vice versa. I guess most people are thinking about men in the ladies' room, I think, though, honestly. But,
yeah,
either way.
Right.
But, yeah, it just stands to reason that you would use that as an excuse.
Yeah, and that's not to say that it would be genuine people who consider themselves transgender. I'm not saying that people who are transgender commit those types of crimes. I want to be clear about that. But it really opens up a whole can of worms that I think is like, how did we ever get to this point in this country? I don't get it.
I mean, is this that much of a problem? And maybe I'm naive on this, but is this that much of a problem in this nation that it rises to the level of national discourse, national boycotts, international, scorn on North Carolina and Mississippi? I mean, this is crazy.
And that's just one part of it, because also, too, in that is what they're saying is North Carolina is saying if you're a Christian, you have how they're framing it, the media is they're saying that the guy from North Carolina, the governor is saying that if you're a Christian business, you have the right to deny someone doing business with somebody that maybe has a lifestyle choice, an issue that you disagree with, and so you don't have to do business. Really, that's the way the media is framing it. But ultimately, the way it swings the other way, and that may be a poor choice of words, but the way it goes the other way is really, from a Christian perspective, they have the right to force pastors to marry, gay couples and things like that. So it's like we have to come up with a balance somewhere that, where it's not, and I don't know what that is, because I think years ago you and I, Chad, talked about this, where it's like maybe we've gotten to the point morally in this country where we have to step back and say we have to take a libertarian approach now to marriage, where we take it out of the hands of the government and let pastors world or nationwide decide. Let's say you're a pastor of a Christian church and you say, I cannot morally marry a gay couple, but there's a liberal church down the road who can. I mean, maybe it's a matter of, because the state is now saying we're giving you rights as to what a couple is, that it has to be taken out of the state's power, and people can't marry through the state but through the church, which is how it started originally. It was like, a tribe, and they had a religious leader, a father figure represented the head of the church who would marry them. Maybe that's what we're getting to, in this country, is we have to take a libertarian look at everything and take the power out of the hands of the state. I mean, I don't know any other way, really.
Well, here's the delicious hypocrisy of this whole thing. We've seen stories of caterers who didn't want to make a cake for a same-sex wedding, photographers who didn't want to photograph a same-sex wedding. We've seen those things, and the hammer came down on those people big time.
Yeah,
and not just the legal hammer, but the news media hammer and the social media hammer came down on those people big time. And so you have that situation, and then you have the flip side. You have Bruce Springsteen, Ringo Starr, and Bryan Adams.
Yeah,
who canceled their shows. And I think Michael Moore did the same thing. He canceled his movie, which I didn't know he had a movie out, and that's not a big loss anyway, because nobody would go to see it. But I digress. So you have these people who refuse to render a service because they disagree with the people of this, with some of the people of the state. Now,
yeah,
correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't it the same thing
yes.
these other people did? These florists, these bakers, these photographers. But I would say what Bruce Springsteen and Bryan Adams are doing is even worse in a sense, because they are denying a very specific service to people who paid for it. I mean, you can't just, nobody can put on a Bruce Springsteen show except for Bruce Springsteen. Nobody can put on a Bryan Adams show except for Bryan Adams. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So anybody can make you a cake. Any other caterer can make you a cake. That's not a very specific service. But I think it's if I can speak, it's much more discriminatory, I think, with what these entertainers are doing. And it's the height of hypocrisy, because they're doing the same exact thing. But, news media, social media cheers them on like they're some kind of heroes.
Yeah.
And they vilify these other people for doing the same thing.
Great point. And actually, but I do disagree with you on one point. Anybody can sing like Bruce Springsteen on a bad day. Great performer, but he just cannot sing that well.
And notice it's these washed up old 80s performers too.
I was just thinking that.
Lower than.
Yeah, it's almost like they saw an opportunity to get back into the limelight. Even Michael Moore.
Bad publicity is better than no publicity, I suppose.
Yeah. Baby, we were born for news.
Hey, maybe you could go put on the concert for Bruce Springsteen.
And you know,
I smell some money in that.
Yeah, that's right. But you know, I mean, and I'm not against anybody. I don't hate anybody or anything like that. But I just think it's like it's getting to the point where, unfortunately, you know, at one time the United States, I believe, was at least much more friendly to Judeo-Christian people who believed in those sorts of principles. And so everybody was fine with the government, you know, controlling different aspects of our lives because a lot of what they did was in line with God. What we Christians believe are God's commandments and God's rules by way of the Bible. But when they started deviating from that and changing things and, you know, abortion is okay and different things like that, all of a sudden they said, we're God because we're changing the rules that God made originally that we said we were in line with. And now we're God because we can create your rights and we can take them away. And so we can say one group, it's acceptable for you to have certain rights. One group, we can take your rights away because those affect the rights of the other person. And that's why I say I think now, you know, it's almost in everyone's best interest to have a society that has a libertarian point of view on those types of issues because you're not going to do anything but impede some people from doing what they think is morally right.
Well, you said the key word in that when you were talking, you said control. And, you know, originally when the government was established here in this country, it was about stewardship, right? I mean, you weren't controlling anything. If you were in the government, you were, you know, a representative and you would go to Washington, D.C., or you would go to the state capitol and you would talk about things and you were stewards of the state or stewards of the nation, the federal government. And over the, you know, course of time, it did turn into control.
Yeah.
And they amassed power in the government. And if you look at, and this is kind of a, not a secret, but this is something that you can use as a benchmark. If you look at anything the government is trying to do, and I say the government, that usually the federal government, usually they're trying to get more control. It's usually about control.
Yeah.
You know, if you look at Common Core, if you look at any number of issues, it's about them trying to centralize power and trying to get more control. And if you go on YouTube, look this up. When the Obamacare legislation was being kicked around in Congress, I believe it was in 2010. Representative John Dingell from Michigan was doing a radio interview, and he slipped up during the interview, and I don't know if this was because of age. I think this was more about what he was really thinking. But during the interview, he said that this legislation was to control the people. He said it outright. Then he quickly corrected himself.
Wow.
But that's what it's about. It's about controlling people. You know, just any issue, just take a look at it. Any issue that's very important to the federal government, it's about control.
Now, I just talked to the producer, and Chad, you said the word dingle, and he says we can use that this week. So
Hashtag dingle.
Whew. Hey, those hashtags were used on a show that nobody's going to tie to this one. So we should explain
marketing,
that.
Man.
Yeah, we should explain that. We did a show on the Bruce Collins show a few weeks back about hashtags. So and we actually taped it the same night as this one. So we're all over the map. I'm like 10 guests ahead on the Bruce Collins show. So I actually canceled one tonight because I'm literally, it's mid-April. So you figure if this is episode 8 or 9 of the big finale, this will air in probably May. But I'm literally, as far as the Bruce Collins show, ahead on guests up through mid-June. So we're taping these opening segments for guests that I've already interviewed, except for the one next week. Now, this is really going to confuse people, but the one next week on the Bruce Collins show, from the time we're taping, not when it's going to air, the Fathom event. Fathom is like these special events that take place in movie theaters. That one, I haven't interviewed them yet, but I'm sneaking them in because that's actually going to premiere the following week. But usually, the guests that I have, I'm like 10 weeks ahead. No, I'm like 8 to 9 weeks ahead right now. And that's with some episodes having 2 guests. So I probably have like 12 guests right now that I've done along the way.
You're an overachiever.
It's hard to keep up with.
Well, there was a time when Chad and I were taping shows the week that they would air.
Yes.
And it was so stressful. Oh, man. Because I would have to get them done by, I think we would tape them Tuesday or Wednesday night, maybe Tuesday night. And then I would edit them in with a guest if I could get the guest on in time. And
I remember you. We would finish recording, and you would say, I got to go. I got to edit this because I have to get it to the station in 24 hours or something like that.
Yeah, it was crazy. Very stressful. So I went overboard, so now I'm way ahead of time. Anyway, okay, so let's get back to the roundtable here. Now, here's one that probably is near and dear to Chad's heart since he is a former congressional candidate. Politics. We've already been talking about politics, of course, but Trump versus Hillary. Who do you think is going to win? And do you think that's going to be the end all? Do you think they're going to rob Trump of a delegate win? Do you think that it is going to be Trump versus Hillary or Cruz versus Hillary? And who do you think is going to win?
Are you asking me or Gabe? I've been talking a lot. I think Gabe should talk. I don't want to monopolize
so far outside
the conversation.
my realm.
Okay, I'll throw one in.
I'll talk for the everyman.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah, Trump and his Trump train, and it's a whole bunch of craziness. I think that he's definitely lost a lot of steam, I think, here recently, being April. It seems like earlier in the year, February, March, he was just chugging along, and it seems like stuff has slowed down for him, but it could be maybe I'm not paying that much attention to it now as I was then. But between him and Hillary, I would like to think that he would win because of the alternative.
Yeah.
And Cruz, I don't know. Politicians are slimy, and well, a Cruz versus Hillary, I think Hillary would win at that one.
Yeah, it's funny because I tend to still think Hillary is going to win, but I guess I would lean towards Trump over Hillary. I don't know. I mean, I definitely don't want Hillary to win. This is like one of the worst years for me because I at least had a glimmer of hope for Ron Paul, even though I always knew if I brought him up on the radio show that Chad would debate me about Ron Paul. But anyway, getting back on point.
I think the dark horse is going to come in and save everything. It's going to be Paul Ryan.
It could be, but I tend to think that the media is going to help Hillary win. But I will say this, and it's something that I've only heard a little bit discussed. Trump has brought a lot of new voters into the Republican base to the point where I'm shocked. Hillary is winning, but she's actually losing to Sanders, occasionally. I'm just shocked at how weak the Democratic side is this year. Now, granted, you could say, well, yeah, but look at Trump. The Republican side is weak too. I guess that's true. But I have seen, like Gabe has said, a lot of enthusiasm for Donald Trump. I'm shocked that Alex Jones is painting him as an outsider. That's another weird thing. But, I'm such a skeptic over the media and the fact that it seems like there are people in power who want to continue Obama's disastrous 8 years, that they will do everything they can. And Chad even brought this up, so this is not an original thought, so I'm probably stealing some of his thunder before he speaks. But I tend to think, Chad said something a while back that I think was true, is I tend to think maybe the media is holding on to something big about Trump, because that guy's got to have some stuff that's happened in the past, that would be shocking. And you see, the media has already thrown all the Hillary stuff out. So that stuff, if you try that in the general election and say, well, look, Hillary has the email scandal to Benghazi, people are, by that point, are going to say, yeah, but we've heard all that stuff. And apparently it wasn't that big of a deal because the FBI hasn't done anything. So I don't know. It's going to be weird, I think.
Well, let me say this. Hillary's a weak candidate.
Yeah.
She was weak when she ran against Obama back in 2008. If you go onto YouTube and look up the 2008 Democrat convention, they were going through the votes on the floor, and they had Hillary Clinton stop the whole thing. And then you can see it on YouTube. Basically, it was really close, and then it was too close, and then Hillary stopped it and then gave her delegate votes to Obama, because they didn't want to go through a contested convention. So Hillary kind of fell on her sword and avoided that. Now, that leads me to my next point. I've talked to some insiders in the Republican Party and some, political mercenaries, I guess, for lack of a better word. And, everyone I've talked to said that a contested convention is virtually guaranteed on the Republican side. So, that's going to be crazy. Now, the Republican Party is in a situation, it's getting better for them every day because Trump is kind of imploding now. But if it looks like they're going to take the nomination away from Trump through this contested convention, then that's going to be a problem for them.
Yeah.
I think they've already suffered collateral damage with the way they've dealt with Trump in the past few months. But the thing with Trump is, I think Trump just got in this to stir it up and to just kind of goof. And he started to become way more popular than he thought he would. And then I think his ego took over, and he thought, oh, hey, I could win this. And I was saying that, I don't know if I said it on the show, but I was telling it to some people a few months ago. And then one of his former campaign workers came out and said the same thing. She worked with him briefly, and then she left. And then she said, look, this was not about Trump winning the nomination. And when he figured out he could, then he kind of went gangbusters on the whole campaign. But getting back to in a contested convention, for people who don't know, is basically you have to get so many delegates to receive the nomination. I think it's 1,537. I'm off the top of my head. I don't know what it is on the Republican side, but if you don't get that amount, it goes to floor votes, right? The convention, all these people show up and they're in their little groups for their states, and then they start to vote on the floor, and it gets absolutely insane. I've been to several state conventions, political conventions that were like that. And I can't imagine. I was at the 2008 Republican National Convention in Minnesota, and I just can't imagine having something like that happen at the national convention. So that's going to be insane, and it's virtually guaranteed. So you might want to watch that. But getting back to these candidates, and you're saying that, Trump, whomever the candidate is on the Republican side, Trump, Cruz, maybe somebody comes in at the convention and maybe gets the nomination who we didn't think would, which is possible. They're going to get hammered by the media. I mean, they're going to get absolutely hammered by the media, just like Mitt Romney did, and for all intents and purposes, Mitt Romney really should have won that election in 2012, but he didn't, because the media was just so ruthless and relentless attacking him that he lost. So I think there's a few things that are going on here. Number one, the media is going to just be ruthless against the Republican candidate. But number two, I think that the Democrats have enough voter fraud, and I'm just going to come out and say it. I think they have enough voter fraud going on in these large cities like Chicago, Cleveland, Detroit, these large population areas that are heavily Democratic controlled, where they can generate enough votes, fraudulent votes, that they can, if the election's close, they can tip it over to the Democrat side. And, honestly, I'm starting to wonder if we'll ever see in the next 4 or 5 elections, I'm starting to wonder if we'll ever see a Republican president. Just because of the way the news media is, and they make no bones about it anymore. I mean, they're just obviously supporting the Democrat Party. Between that and the voter fraud, I don't know. It's a recipe for Democrat control of the White House for the foreseeable future. And I don't mean to sound gloom and doom, but that's just the way I see it.
Wait, Chad. Are you saying the elections are rigged?
Yes.
Captain.
That's what I'm saying.
Captain Doomsday is doom and gloom. Hey, by the way,
I've said this on the show before. In 2004, I personally know people who saw it with their own eyes. People at Cobo Hall in Detroit were set up with their own voting machine. I'm telling you, this is the truth. They were set up with their own voting machine, and they were filling out ballots and running them through the machine.
Wow.
And there were multiple places, and this was in 2004. So I guarantee they've got it down to even more of a science now, and it's more organized, and it's going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy.
And that was the same machine that would dish out welfare checks to deceased people. And by the way, in all fairness to Mitt Romney, he did win Utah. I don't know why, but anyway. Now here. Now,
I've been waiting to use this.
Now, going back to the weirdness of the big finale, we have a couple of strange stories. They're actually videos that are being passed around the internet as we speak. One of them is a man who walks through a door of this video. It's an extremely odd video making the rounds online. It appears to show a man effortlessly walking through a glass door of a closed store and then re-emerge moments later. In the perplexing footage, which looks to be from a security camera, the mysterious man approaches the store and casually walks through the closed glass door with ease. As he performs this bizarre feat, the picture in the video becomes distorted as if it is being affected by some kind of electrical interference. Strangely, when the man crosses into the store and throughout his visit, the clock on the video camera flickers between 2016 and 2019. When he exits the store, seemingly snacking on an item taken from inside, so he's a shoplifter, a person sitting nearby, a homeless man, looks astonished by what he had just seen. Viewers of the video have offered a number of possibilities for what might be taking place, including that the man is a time traveler or a ghost. Gentlemen, first of all, the gregarious one and the Ayatollah of Radiola, have you two gentlemen witnessed the video?
Yes.
Okay. In its full black and whiteness.
Okay, excellent, excellent. So you can comment on this. What do you think? Is it real or is it a hoax?
Fake.
Totally.
Next
fake.
question.
It's totally fake.
So for future reference, are we just saying that most videos on YouTube are fake?
No, really?
Are you saying that the old adage is true? If it's too good to be true, it's not true?
Well,
yeah, there's so much software these days that you can buy to make your personal movies and special effects, that was probably done very, very cheaply and very, very quickly.
Now, I got it off of the Coast to Coast AM website. So you gentlemen do know that some of their listeners do actually see these videos and think they're real, right?
Some.
Sadly.
Probably a majority.
A large percentage. Enough to elect Donald Trump?
Time will tell.
80% of people who think the time traveler video is true will vote for Donald Trump. Oh. Or maybe Bernie Sanders. Anyway. Okay, so here's another video, and I think I know the answer, but let's go through it anyway. We've got a lot of time to spare. No, just kidding. Now, this video that's making the rounds is a ghost dog captured on video. Well, of course it's captured on video. That's why it's on video. Okay. A UK family with a remarkable history of ghostly activity in their home believe that they may have inadvertently filmed the spirit of their departed dog, who they credit helping to end the haunting. Barry and Christine Kennedy need to have their head examined. No, Barry and Christine Kennedy say that they have experienced a number of troubling encounters with what appears to be a sinister entity in their home over the last 11 years. Man, why don't they just get a Bible and start reading it, you know?
Right.
Among the odd events were mysterious and unexplained scratches appearing on their bodies. Okay, this is starting to sound more legitimate, actually. Footsteps and whispering seeming to emanate from nowhere, and sightings of the ghost of an old man. However, the couple say that the strange activity suddenly ceased 2 months after their dog had died. Where have I heard a story about a dog keeping reptilians away? I don't know. And appeared to return in spirit form. Although the story sounds almost too fantastic to be true, Barry Kennedy actually managed to capture a brief piece of footage which may lend credence to their tale. In the cell phone video, a nebulous mist, don't you just hate the nebulous mist, can be seen walking next to Christine. In the jungle, the mighty jungle, the nebulous mist walks next to Christine, and slowly seems to take the shape and walking motion of a dog, much to the amazement of Barry as he films it. What a coincidence that he had his camera out. The couple says that they regret sharing the video because of the many claims from skeptics that it is a hoax, but seem relieved nonetheless that the potential return of their dog from the hereafter appears to have put an end to the years of strange ghostly activity in their home. That's the part that makes it sound more unbelievable. The first part, I believe there have been people who have been attacked by demonic entities that had some of those clues. Anyway, perhaps the only downside of the whole affair is one after effect attributed to the ghostly visits from their former pet. A lingering wet dog smell. Oh my.
They could have at least washed him before they buried him.
Yeah, really. I mean, come on. And the fact that their cat's litter box had been used and it has, yes, and ghost poop was dropped into the box. No, I don't know what that looks like. It's invisible. Okay, so what do you think? Hoax or real?
Go ahead, Chad.
I think it's a not as well produced hoax as the first video.
Okay.
It's weird looking. It's, yeah, a potato quality video.
You know,
the rabbit playing in the background's kind of weird, but I don't know. It's pretty cheesy looking.
Now, if you just read the story though, there have been demonic activities in the guise of ghosts. And we even talked about it on a roundtable here on the big finale about potentially demons acting as if they are from other planets or, UFO alien abduction type stuff. So, I mean, that part's not unbelievable, but an actual ghost dog coming into the picture and saving them from demons, I don't think that's really going to happen.
No.
Your turn, Chad.
I have
you want to
kind
step?
of an anecdotal story.
No pun intended, Chad. Do you want to step in that?
No, Gabe's got an anecdotal story to tell us.
Saved by the Gabe.
So I had a pet, a dog, a border collie. Had him for years. Great dog. Towards the end of his life, he stayed with my parents at their house and lived in their basement. I had a nice basement, good place for him to be. He was old, so when fire trucks would come by, he would howl, as dogs do. So he's passed on, and at some point, my mom, of course, works from home by herself, quiet house. She was there by herself. Dog had passed probably a year prior or so, and she heard him howling from the basement. And not too very long after that, she heard the fire trucks come by. Take it at what you will. Weird story. But I don't know why he would be in the basement still howling. It just doesn't make a lot of sense.
That's like a creepy campfire story.
It is kind of creepy when you think about it, especially
That
if
just
you're there by
creeped me
yourself.
out, totally. That just creeped me out.
And thank you for joining us, Gabe. We'll be seeing you. No.
Don't cut me off.
I thought you were going to say that you used to have this dog, and Derek Gilbert came over with a come hither look.
He chased him off.
Oh, man, and if nobody knows what that means, we're in trouble. Okay.
No, yeah, it is creepy. Of course, coming from my mom, hey, I wouldn't question that. Who knows what she heard, but
hey, it's a story.
ghost dog howling in the basement at trucks that have yet to show up.
Yes, and I just want to say, if George Norrie is listening, Gabe Reed's email is
Hound of Baskervilles at gmail.com.
Or maybe Heather Wade is looking for guests really bad. That's Art Bell's replacement. Nobody knew who was enough to laugh at the joke.
Heather who?
Sound effect.
Yeah. Hey, I've got a. We've been running the gamut of subjects right now, and tell me what you really believe when I do that, when I talk about this, because no holds barred, honest, answers. And this may be a weird answer on my own, but this is like a Christian theological discussion question. And there's a lot of things in Christianity. I recently interviewed Michael Heiser, and he had a really interesting thing that he said, which he usually says a lot of interesting things. But he was talking about how he doesn't really like to get into a lot of Bible prophecy debates about the rapture, the tribulation, and all of that, because he said, in order for someone to accept a certain position in those types of discussions, you almost have to deny other verses that seem to contradict what you believe. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And honestly, if you look at now sometimes you can see that other position is out of context, and so you are right in that position. But there are things that I believe based on what I've read in the Bible that I can kind of see the other side, like what they're saying, like what they see in the Bible and the verses that they're using. I understand their perspective. But there's there's obviously different denominations that believe different things, that run the gamut. So, notwithstanding that, there's an understanding there that I believe that, as long as the basic stuff is true, they're believers in Jesus Christ, they're following Jesus Christ, that they're saved. So a lot of the debates that are going on are almost, I don't want to say worthless, but they're important, but they're not important foundationally, I guess you could say. But there is one that I sort of think is very important. And that is eternal security versus a Christian losing their salvation. And I grew up in a denomination where it was like anything you did practically, or at least my perception of it when I was growing up, would cause you to lose your salvation. So I was like, asking for forgiveness for it, for everything, thinking that I had lost my salvation. Not just asking for forgiveness, but it's like, thinking that I was totally backslidden. And I'm not there, but I'm also not. I tend not to agree with. This is just me now. I tend not to agree with eternal security on one major point, and that is, I think faith is what saves you, faith in Jesus Christ. And I don't, like, I interview Eddie Snipes, who believes in eternal security, and I'm not there because I would think it would be hard to be a Christian and not have faith in Jesus Christ. I can understand the performance things that some people, they backslide or they have issues, but they still believe in Jesus Christ. They still want to serve God, and I don't question whether or not they're a Christian. But if someone stops believing in Jesus Christ, it seems like that is such an important thing, faith in the Bible, that I don't know how you could be a Christian without it. In other words, if you stop identifying yourself as a Christian, it seems to me that you've walked away. I don't quite, but I see the verses, yet on the other hand, I see the verses that people use to prove eternal security, that you're sealed by the Holy Spirit and all of that. So, I mean, I'm just wanted to get you guys' thoughts on that. What do you think?
Well, the Bible says we're saved by grace through faith. So your statement about faith is partially correct. We're saved by grace.
Right.
But it's through our faith in Christ. And, I think the Lord has an overabundance of grace. He has a lot of mercy.
Yes.
But there are scriptures that would, and you say losing your salvation. Maybe that's not the right way to say it, and I've said it too. I'm not criticizing you for saying it that way, but I don't know if you can lose your salvation so much as you can turn your back on it, or maybe walk away from it, or abdicate it. There are scriptures that would lead me to believe that you can walk away from it. There's a scripture that I'm thinking of, and I can't remember the reference specifically, but it's a man who puts his hand to the plow and yet looks back is not fit for the kingdom. There's scriptures like that, and I know there are also scriptures on the other side, yes. Bruce. I know what you're saying. No man, I have you in my hand, and no man can pluck you out of my hand, and things like that. So I don't know. I mean, it seems to me like there is a chance that you could walk away from that gift.
And the way I view it is, it would be your choice. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the way I see it too.
Yeah, and the reason why I bring it up is people might think, well, it's weird that you would even bring it up. But it's one of those foundational issues that it's so important that it's like, I don't know. It's one of those things where if you're believing wrong and you've walked away and it's like you have no interest in Jesus Christ, you have no faith or anything like that, that it's almost a dangerous thing to preach that then. Although, you know what I'm kind of saying? It's like, it's a difficult thing. Although I guess at that point, if you've totally walked away from it, you're not hearing preaching anyways. You're not interested in that. So I don't know. It's just one of those foundational things where I keep going over it and thinking, wow, I'm at the point I think where you're at, Chad, though. It's like I more agree with eternal security if it means that the person still is a believer in Jesus Christ. Not a performance thing, because performance is the fruit of your belief, I believe.
Yes.
And so that's what I believe. But if you stop believing, then I just have a tough time saying, that I know for sure that somebody who walks away like that, but then again, I'm not God, so.
Yeah, and the Bible also says salvation is a gift.
It is.
And it's a gift. It's not from our works. It's not from what we do.
Right.
It's a gift from God.
Right.
So.
And all of it is a gift.
That's a tough. That's a tough one.
Yeah. And it also says that, it also states over and over how important faith is. Without faith, it's impossible to please God.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like it emphasizes faith in Jesus Christ is very important. So yeah, it's interesting. Okay, now do you want me to move on?
Gabe, where are you?
That's a tough one.
It is.
I was thinking about it as you guys were talking. I'm thinking about the story of the prodigal son. He had it, he took off, he came back, and the father had everything laid out, ready. Hey, let's feast. He's back. Yay, party. So, obviously the reference there is God is the father who is always wanting his son to come back. So,
yeah, and we think that the son came back, but actually the Bible says the father ran to him.
Well, right, but the son had to initiate the fact that he's like, oh crap, I'm down here in the dumps and I need to turn this thing around and I'm going to limp home and hopefully, lick my wounds on the doorstep and see if he'll let me in. But as soon as the father saw him, he came towards him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like Chad was saying, God's got a lot more grace than I think we have any kind of fathom to even think about that. We're just so flawed as humans that there's nothing we can do. And it really does have to come to faith and, hey.
Wow, that's amazing.
Tough one.
All three of us pretty much agree almost exactly alike. That's interesting because we've never talked about that before, so I didn't really know.
No, this is the first time.
Yeah. Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. And actually, when you get to that point and you realize it's all about God, that's actually what changes you, not all the other stuff. Like when I was mostly in a performance-based Christianity when I was younger, I was doing all kinds of messed up stuff because I thought it was on me. And now I realize that the more I know God, the more I pray, the more I seek Him, is the more I become like Him. It's like it's like looking in a mirror. The Bible talks about. It's like all of that stuff you wanted to be by trying is achieved through His grace. It's amazing. Okay, here's along the same subject. And I'm going to skip. I had a point number 4 that's so ridiculous. I'm going to skip it. But we spoke about Mike Heiser, and this better be the last one because we're actually way out of time. Mike Heiser wrote about the divine counsel from the Bible, but mostly references Semitic texts to show detail, because the divine counsel is not mentioned a lot, but it is mentioned outside the Bible. How much of a subject matter like that is vaguely mentioned in the Bible do you think should be researched by texts and sources outside the Bible? And I think you have to be really careful on that stuff because maybe we're only supposed to know so much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's like, how much have we heard about the Nephilim and how much, it's, the subject of the giants and the Nephilim, it's interesting. I'm not going to lie. I mean, it's intrigued me in the past, and the Bible only says so much about it. And the Bible does actually say quite a bit about giants.
Yeah.
But you start talking about it, you start to get into it, and more people get into it, and they research it, quote unquote, research it. And so you can only go so far with the Bible.
Yes.
So then you have to broaden out. Okay, let's see. Oh, Josephus, he says something about giants. Okay. Oh yeah, Book of Enoch. Oh, the trap everybody falls into when they talk about the Nephilim. Book of Enoch. Let's go to the Book of Enoch. I mean, there's just all these different things. I'll tell you a funny story. It seems like everybody in the Nephilim community. Did I just coin a term?
Yeah.
Everybody in the Nephilim community.
The club.
They embrace the Book of Enoch, right? The Book of Enoch. I was I'm trying to figure out how to say this. I don't want to call somebody out. I was writing for a newsletter for someone, and I quoted in this article that I wrote, it was about Nephilim, it was about fallen angels, and I quoted in this article that I wrote a book called the Kebra Nagast. And the Kebra Nagast is a book that's an Ethiopian text, and it meets all the same criteria of the Book of Enoch, really. I mean, some people would argue with that. But as far as it's, it being kind of a far-out extra-biblical text, that's what it is. And it talks about in there about these fallen angels. And I quoted from this, and I kind of extrapolated a little bit out of this text. And the person who was publishing the newsletter just broke all contact with me as far as a writer for the newsletter and didn't publish it. Huh. And this text it would just be like me quoting from the Book of Enoch, really. Yeah. And people would argue that, well, the Essene community, they had the Book of Enoch in their library, and blah, 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 blah. But the fact of the matter is the Kebra Nagast is just as obscure and goofy as the Book of Enoch. And it just shows you how there's a selective approach to these extra biblical texts. But getting back to Mike Heiser, I don't know. I do think there's a risk when you do that. And now for him, he's a scholar. He's an ancient language scholar. So yeah, that might be a little different. But when you start to run a ministry, quote unquote ministry, and you're using these pseudepigraphal works and the Book of Enoch and all these things, then I think you're probably crossing the line at that point.
Yeah. I just checked with the producer, and he said we could use the word pseudepigraphal, whatever he said.
Okay.
No, hey, let me just say this. You didn't want to call out the person, but I just have to ask you, does it rhyme with Sim Sarsupi? No. Okay.
Maybe.
Now, Gabe, we're just about out of time. You have the last word. Do you want to say good night, America?
Well, I was going to kind of dovetail onto what Chad said, and that apparently it seems that only with some of these groups that the only extra biblical books or scripts that are acceptable are ones of Jewish origin, whereas you have all these other cultures and throughout the world that they have ancient writings and ancient texts, and to them they're just as valid as they are to the Jews.
Yeah.
There's just, what's your worldview, I guess, is what it boils down to. But I'd say if you're trying to write about something that is not mentioned at all in the Bible, or not mentioned at all, but vaguely mentioned, perhaps it's not really that important to the message of salvation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if your ministry is not focused on Jesus Christ 100%, you got a problem.
You missed it. You missed the mark.
Yeah, you're missing it.
Yep, absolutely. And that's no better way to end than that, gentlemen. And you will be back, of course. I think we're doing an interview next time on the big finale, but then after that, maybe we'll talk about the interview. Oh, we should. It's a very interesting non-Christian guest. Guess what his book is? An Atheist Goes to Heaven.
I was thinking Nephil Squatch.
We could have a field day with that one. Gentlemen, I'll see you next time.
Hey, thanks for having me, Bruce.
Yep, thanks, Bruce.
Hey, this is your show as much as mine, so this is the big finale.
Yeah, but you're the mighty Bruce Collins.
No.
The big wig.
Mighty as in Nephilim-sized?